This is R2D Tech, and today we're back with another video about the Tesla Model 3. The Model 3, probably one of the best electric cars you can get, if not the best electric car you can get today. And there are a number of reasons for that. For example, the massive touchscreen that you get in the car, the autopilot features which are optional, and just basically the infrastructure that Tesla's built. They have probably the biggest infrastructure of like chargers all over the world, which is very nice. But it's still an expensive car, and we're going to tell you if it's worth your money.
When it comes to exterior design, the Model 3 is an absolute beast. It looks more sporty than any car I've ever seen, and more futuristic than any car I've ever seen as well. On the front there's no air intake at all, no grille, because it doesn't need one, it's fully electric. And that just makes it look so much further ahead than its competition. Also, if you opt for a more expensive version, you can get a full sunroof, which basically makes it look 10 times more futuristic than it did before. Now obviously if you can't afford that, which we'll get onto later, the other options are still very attractive. Now in terms of colours, there are several variants, but for the base model you would just get black, although I would definitely recommend going for the red, which is amazing, or a white, or maybe you could just wrap it later on or paint it, whatever. They're all going to be good. Now another thing which is worth mentioning is that because it's electric, there's no engine in the front, so you do get a front boot, which is actually definitely spacious enough for a rucksack and definitely spacious enough for your shopping, for example. And they even have hooks so that your bags don't fall over when you're driving. And the back boot is very spacious for the size of the car, and it has a lower section as well, which actually fits a full suitcase. But the idea is that you can probably store either a spare tyre or the electric charger in there as well, so it's hidden out of sight. For the wheels, the base model comes with 18-inch wheels, which actually look really futuristic and nice, but if you want slightly larger wheels, you could opt for the 19-inch ones, which make the car a bit higher off the ground and look slightly more attractive, but the base ones are definitely really nice anyway.
So for the interior of the car, you get a very minimalist and futuristic look. You obviously get that massive touchscreen, which all Teslas get. It's a landscape rather than portrait, like in the Model S and Model X, which I think is a much better design because you just feel like it's a bigger screen. You can control all the features of the car from that touchscreen, so like the massive air conditioning vent which runs along the whole of the front of the car, which is a really nice touch. You can control that through the touchscreen. It's basically a whole infotainment system on that touchscreen. So you can watch YouTube videos, you can open the boot, even the front boot. You can do anything basically that you could do on an iPad, apart from a few things. There are also a lot of features which make the car a lot more comfortable than a few other cars. So for example, you don't get that bump on the floor where the middle seat in the back is, which gives more legroom for all three people in the back. But one thing to mention is the back seats are rather low to the ground, so you'll find that your legs are kind of raised off the ground, which might tire out your leg muscles a bit if you're on a long journey, which is kind of annoying, but it's not a deal breaker. Another thing to mention is that the windows don't go all the way down in the back, which is kind of annoying, but it doesn't really bother me that much. If you pay a little bit more, you do also get a massive glass back, which basically runs all the way along the top of the car, which is a really nice feature. If you're worrying about getting sunburn, you don't have to worry because there is a protective layer on the glass which stops most UV light. Also, another option is to change the color of the interior of the car, especially the seats, so you can make them white if you want. And although that might worry some people because it could get dirty, they do have a layer on top which kind of makes it easier to clean, so it might last a little bit longer than some other cars. There are a lot of features which make this car very comfortable and very premium, like the wooden veneer on the dashboard, the optional wooden veneer on the dashboard. It makes it feel like a more premium car, like a BMW or a Mercedes, which is nice to see from a smaller car company.
Men. Ooh. 2.5 men. Don't put that in the video. Obviously, with an electric car, fully electric car, something that's very important is the charging. Now, around the US, there's a huge network of Tesla superchargers, which actually makes it quite easy to charge. And since the range is around 250 miles, you'll probably only need to charge it once a week, depending on how long you commute every day. But for others who need to charge it more often, installing something in your house might be a better option, and charging overnight. Now, the problem is, if you use a mains charger, just normal mains, it will take 1.5 days to charge your car. Now, this is going to be a deal breaker for most people. So you're definitely going to have to either install just a faster charger in your house, which costs quite a lot, and it will take you half a day to charge your car, which is reasonable if you're considering charging it overnight while you're sleeping, but not so reasonable for road trips. But then obviously they have these 50-watt chargers in the cities like London and New York. This will take around an hour to charge your Tesla from around 10 to 80%. But if you use the Tesla supercharger, it will take 45 minutes. And now for the Model 3 exclusively, you can charge it for 30 minutes from 10 to 80 with the new version 3 superchargers around in the United States. But obviously in other countries, the network isn't built up that much. It's definitely developing, and cities themselves are just building 50-watt chargers everywhere now because they want to transition to electric by around 2040. In terms of the actual charging port on your Tesla Model 3, all you have to do is push the charger cover and it will open with a light where the Tesla logo is on the charger. You just plug in the charger to either a street charger or your home or a supercharger. And when it starts charging, the Tesla logo will change color so you know it's working. Now, when it's done, it will go green so you know you can unplug it. And on the actual tablet inside the car, you can set how long you want it to charge for or what percentage you want it to charge for, because it's actually not recommended to charge all the way to 100%, just as it's not recommended to deplete the battery all the way to around 0%, because this actually damages the battery.
So the performance on the Model 3, now I'd say it was pretty impressive. 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, more than 329 miles of range, depending on what model you get. And, 329 miles of range, I'd say that would get you to wherever you wanted to go. And just generally, it's a pretty impressive car to drive. I haven't driven it myself, but from other people's opinions, they say it's incredibly fun to drive. Now, another feature you can opt into if you want to is autopilot, which is really impressive. If you pay another £4,900, you get the autopilot feature, which isn't actually available in the UK yet, but it will be in a few years' time. With the autopilot feature, you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, but it will obviously keep you in the right lane. It will keep the speed pretty constant. It will make sure that you don't crash, which is a pretty important factor. What's pretty cool is if you want to change lanes, you can just press the indicator and it will automatically do that for you, which is very nice. It will take some of the burden off driving on long journeys, which is always nice.
3 things that I should probably mention about this car are: number 1, if you live in a very cold climate, the battery is definitely going to be affected. Just like your phone will drain a lot faster if you leave it on a freezing cold floor, the battery in the Tesla Model 3 will drain a lot faster if you live in a cold climate, especially since the car needs to be heated to a certain temperature before it can run. So this will actually drain your battery quite a lot. But if you live in a warm climate, it's perfectly fine. You can use a phone app as your car key, and it will basically detect when you're walking up to the car and automatically unlock the car for you. You don't even need to pull out the Tesla card to unlock the car, it will just do it for you. Now you can control other stuff on the app, like you can preheat the car, you can control any air conditioning. There's a few modes as well, like dog mode, where it will keep the aircon on to keep your dog cool in the car if you go for shopping or something. And there's actually another mode which basically arms the alarms in the car, and if a robber tries to steal your car, it will display a warning sign on the tablet in the car and notify you as well. A final thing to mention, which is actually a positive about the battery of this car, is that if you're driving downhill and you brake, for example, the battery will actually charge just like a dynamo on a bike will turn on the lights. So you actually could end up with more charge than when you started if you're going downhill. And another thing to mention with the brakes actually is that instead of using the brake pads all the time like a normal car, because this has an electric motor, it can actually just put the motor into reverse if you want to brake. This will slow down the car quite rapidly and doesn't actually use the brake pads, so services will be a lot less frequent on those.
Obviously, the Tesla Model 3 is an excellent car and probably the best electric car that you can get, as long as you're willing to pay that price premium. Now, if you're not willing to pay that price premium, you can get the Nissan Leaf, which is another excellent electric car. But obviously, you don't get all those great features like the massive touchscreen, which seems like a big payoff. Now, obviously, the base model of the Model 3 starts at £35,000, but if you do want any of the more premium features, that price is going to increase pretty rapidly. For example, just getting the autopilot feature costs almost £5,000 extra. Depending on what you want to get, you might end up paying a lot more than you think you will. That's it from us at R2D Tech. If you liked the video, please press the thumbs up button. If you loved it, please subscribe. We'll be back next week with another video.